Hey y'all, happy Tuesday. So, um, hopefully everyone is doing well. I have been having some technicalities today, so hopefully we can get this to go smoothly because we have a lot to talk about tonight. So, happy Tuesday, everyone. As y'all can see, I have on my super cute unicorns, fairy dust, and AR-15s type of girl hoodie. You can get those below in the description box. And so before we get started today, let me go ahead and thank my patrons. Thank y'all so much for supporting my content. Thank you to my VIP patrons. Ray and Daniel. Thank you to everyone that has purchased merch. And all right, hey to everybody coming into the room. Hey, Black Introvert. Hey, King BJ. Hey, ROTDT Podcast. Hey, Cajun. Hey, Kendra. Hey, AKW Beats. Hey, Dominique. Dominique in here early today. Okay, girl. Okay, I see you. Glad we got Cajun back in the building. All right, y'all. So let me get set up here. Hey, Bruce. Let me let people know. Since I got my little swipe up link on, I finally got my little swipe up link on Instagram. You can't tell me nothing now, y'all. I'm making you swipe up on everything. Like, what's up? So let me let people know I am live. Hey, India. Hey, Edward. Hey, Grace. All right, y'all. So let's go ahead and get started. And y'all let me know, make sure y'all let me know that y'all can also hear me okay, because I am using a different mic tonight. I usually use my headset, but I'm using a different mic tonight. But all right, y'all. So there's been a lot of things in the media this last couple weeks. We're gonna talk about that. The last couple of days, I should really say. We're gonna talk about that today. And it's interesting that now things are happening and the conversation is being shifted. That's going to take focus off a lot of things. I think take some of the failures and the blame off of this administration, take a little bit of the heat off and move the direction in the conversation elsewhere. And so we're going to talk about some of those things tonight. The first thing being the border. So, in case y'all don't know, there is a looming crisis at the border. Now, what kills me about this whole situation is you have the Joe Biden administration that built the whole platform basically on the fact that, we're going to fix these immigration issues. And in fact, in some regards, it's a lot the same. And in some regards, it's actually worse, which is not great at all. So we're going to talk about that. So we're going to talk about that. So, all right. Hey to everybody that's coming in the room. So let's start with these leaked pictures that came out. So this is inside a crowded border patrol tent in Donna, Texas. So as you can see, let me make sure y'all can see that. Okay. So as y'all can see, this is in Donna, Texas. So exclusive photos from inside a U.S. Customs and Border Protection temporary overflow facility in Donna, Texas, reveal the crowded makeshift conditions at the border as the government's long-term child shelters and family detention centers fill up. Why it matters. Each of 8 pods in the so-called soft-sided facility has a 260% occupancy, who provided the photos to Axis to raise awareness about the situation. But as of Sunday, he said one pod held more than 400 unaccompanied male minors. Okay. I mean, as y'all can see, we went from to now using like all these little cute words, right? Now it's facilities, now it's unaccompanied children and minors, and things like that. Because the Biden administration has restricted media coverage at housing facilities, images like these offer a rare window into conditions. I just want y'all to, that fact alone, right? That fact alone, can y'all imagine? First of all, I'm starting to think that we have an administration that doesn't want to be critiqued and doesn't want to be held accountable to the same extent of other administrations. Why I say this is, if y'all remember, this was a few weeks ago when you had that bombing in Syria, and people on Twitter were talking about it. It was going viral, saying, we haven't even got our stimulus checks yet, and you're already, in other countries bombing people and all these other things. And then immediately after that, it's like the media started trying to take up for this administration, like, oh, well, he was gonna bomb them again, but when they saw that it was some kids and women, they was like, nah, we good, we'll let them slide this time, see how great we are. You know what I mean? Like, it was on that type energy. And even this, to deny the freedom of the press, like restricting media coverage in certain areas. But we remember when AOC was crying at the whatever, she was standing on some side of the gate doing this and all that, and all the pictures we've had come out before. But according to this article, they're describing it as terrible conditions for children. Border Patrol agents are doing the best they can under the circumstances, but not equipped to care for kids and need help from the administration. We have to stop kids and families from making the dangerous trek across Mexico to come to the United States. We have worked with Mexico and Central American countries to have them apply for asylum in their countries. So the crazy part about this is that you came in hot. You said you had all these solutions, right? Down the previous administration that in some regards just used some extensions of what were created in the previous administration, the Obama administration, right? Said all these things, and the conditions are worse. Now you have more children at the border, more unaccompanied minors. You have more children in border protective protection services than ever before. They're being held longer in these facilities than before. And to me, it's like, we couldn't get away from this. I don't know if y'all remember the first 2 years going into the Trump administration, we couldn't get away from this conversation. Like, this was all we talked about for like months. The media was beating us over the head. I'm talking about months and months and months, beating us over the head with the kids in cages narrative. And now you think you're just going to sweep it in the rug? Now that we've had these unfortunate, mass shootings, they think they're just going to sweep it under the rug. The thing with Andrew Cuomo, they think they're just going to sweep it under the rug because of these recent happenings. So if you look at these pictures, right? These are some of the pictures. Same type of blanket. Weren't they supposed to be getting some beds delivered from what was the place, the name of the furniture store that went viral that time, and people got mad because they were going to donate beds to these facilities. But I mean, hey, look what we got now. So what's the name of the furniture store? But this is what you have. And people are checking out. A lot of these media sources are saying that people are watching the news, especially the mainstream media, less and less. People have checked out. To me, that confirms that I don't really think people really cared about these issues. A lot of people in the very first place. I think that people have followed a mainstream narrative and been hyped up constantly by the media and allowed the media to dictate their own personal belief system, opinions, and everything in between. And now people are checking out. Now the hypocrisy is coming to light. And I mean, so let me make sure I posted this. So let's keep looking at this. So this was under the Obama. These are the pictures from the Obama administration. So if y'all remember, I did a video on this during the Trump administration that ended up getting a lot of views because at the time they were trying to pass these pictures off as if these were being done during the Trump administration, which was just false. Now, did you have some similar facilities during the Trump administration? Yes. But where the lies come in at do actual investigative reporting. Stop rehashing pictures from the previous administration to push propaganda or to push an agenda. And I'm not cool with that. Like, just be honest about the situation, but you can't write a story and then put somebody else's images on top of it and be like, oh, these two things go together. Like, no, they don't. Right? So these pictures were from the Obama administration. That's one of them. Does it have any others in here? Very similar. Very similar. If you look at this, probably the only difference is that the previous pictures look like they have these little COVID partitions up. You know what I mean? The little plastic that they put so you won't breathe on people. Only notable difference. Now, this is where some of this gets worse. So in case y'all don't know, right? And I actually had somebody write this to me on Instagram. What you will have a lot of people do, whether they're Biden supporters, whether they're just, see themselves as being empathetic to the border crisis or to the fact that people trying to immigrate, whichever that may be. A lot of these people try to paint it as, oh, this is better. Joe Biden is not separating people from their families. That is another false narrative, okay? We want to be truthful because people need to know the truth. It's not about pushing propaganda. It's not about pushing an agenda, okay? Just about simply knowing the truth, what it is, objectively. If you didn't know, and I've been talking about this for years now, human trafficking is a huge issue at the border. Human trafficking is already a big issue in America and honestly across the world. But if you think about it, with a lot of these countries below the border kind of being, in distress and, not having some of the best economies and things like this, crime, violence, and those type of things, it creates a system almost like a black market to boost human trafficking and exacerbate it. And that is what's been happening, and that is what's going to always happen when you have an issue. You don't have a flowing system. You're rolling out the red carpet for people, knowing that they can come over here. We don't have a mandatory e-verify system that employers can use to say, oh, well, you're a citizen here, right? We have people that are willing to pay, immigrants, non-citizens under the table. We have people, human trafficking issues that are already not being handled. Not only that, just simple slave labor, physical labor. You have them bringing children over here to work, knowing that the regulations for getting a child into the border and or a child that's along with an adult, it is much easier. The restrictions are lessened. You will be looked at as more favorable and more like you have a better plea, because it's like, oh, well, I was just looking for a better life for me and my child. But in fact, sometimes those children are kidnapped. They're sold by the families, right? Or just whatever. And sometimes it's like a indentured servitude thing. Sometimes, you may have a family that's not well off and they say, okay, well, I'll send my child with you if you could just please, give them a little bit of money, maybe send some money back, or we use it as a system for some of my other family members to eventually work our way over here. But then sometimes they'll tell the parents, they'll agree to that, but then they just take off with the child. They never hear from the child again, and things like that happening. And so this is according to MSN.com. Human trafficking business is booming at the border, with cartels raking in over 14 million a day in February report. Criminal organizations reportedly made up to 14 million a day by trafficking women, children, and families across the US-Mexico border. Trafficking is a multi-billion-dollar industry. A lot of these vulnerable populations use their life savings. Some are essentially indentured servants, and they're working off this debt for a long period of time. In other cases, some of these migrants are asked to transport narcotics or some form of crime to work off a different part of their debt. Let's talk about the fees. Fees to smuggle people across the border reportedly range from $5,000 to as much as $9,000 for one adult. So think about somebody being like, I've either done this before, or I know some of the keys or some of the advantages or best ways to do this. It's like a smuggling ring. It's a human trafficking ring of getting these people in the border. So this just goes on to talk about this. The Biden administration also recently signed an $86 million contract with a nonprofit organization to house migrants in hotel rooms as officials grapple with the present influx. So you have a American economy that's going into decline. You have about half the country still out of work. You have stimulus checks that have just been sent out. You have incoming inflation that's going to be at rates that we've probably never seen. And yet we have $86 million to put immigrants up, illegal immigrants, in hotels, right? And that's partly due to the overflowing of these facilities. But think about that. You have a increasing homeless population, okay? Increasing every single day. Particularly due to a lot of people that lost their homes and lost their jobs and things like that due to the COVID lockdowns. But you have $86 million to do this. Now, before people try to jump in your emotional bag, you know, you feel so bad for immigrants. And I'm not saying to not have empathy for people that want a better life or whatever the case may be. And let me be clear, I've always said this, the bulk of the blame fall on the politicians that are selling us out, the people that vote for them, the people that pay taxes. So if you roll out a red carpet for people, human nature, if you give people an inch, just pure human nature is going to take a mile. That's just common sense. That's just pure human nature. That's why you are supposed to actually work on the behalf of the citizen, right? But it was just a year or two ago where saying like America First was racist. But hey, I mean, okay, whatever. Let's look at this, because this is according to the Mexican president, migrant president. Mexico says Biden asylum policies boost illegals and cartels. The Mexican government is concerned that President Biden's asylum policies are encouraging. That's an important word. Illegal immigration and providing revenue to drug cartels through human trafficking across the U.S. border. Mexico has asked the Biden administration for help to provide developmental aid to Central America, since many of the migrants come from countries such as Honduras, Nicaragua, and Guatemala seeking asylum in the U.S. They see him as the migrant president. This is the Mexican government saying, like, dude, like, that 86 mil that you finna get to put up people in hotels, why not invest that into struggling economies? And in some regards, these economies that we've possibly helped stifle, and I won't even get into all that. But if you are not continually encouraging these people with benefits and revenue, and it's like they wouldn't have the same, it wouldn't be as incentivized to cross the border. They see him as the migrant president. And so many feel they're going to reach the United States. Mexican president and Andres Manuel Lopez said of Biden after their virtual meeting on March 1, we need to work together to regulate the flow because the businesses can't be tackled from one day to the next. Some of Biden policies that worry the Mexican government include a fast track to citizenship for migrants living in the U.S. and support for gang violence victims. So this is the Mexican president saying this, saying, look, let's work together. We can figure this out, help regulate the flow. We can help reduce human trafficking. What's the opposition to that? What could anybody say in opposition to that other than you are still trying to sell out the American people, trying to create or boost a new underclass, trying to create or boost a new voting bloc, is amongst other things. And you know it's bad. You know it's bad out here in these streets when your boy Sean King got to say something about it. It's wild to see people who are outraged at the conditions for children at the border under Trump just not care that much anymore under Biden. When Sean King have to address it, what's really going on? What's really going on? And I want y'all to look at this first. I want y'all to look at this first comment. And the people that don't know what the heck they be talking about be so loud. I mean, this first comment, just simple research will debunk all of this. There's a big difference. They are coming on their own versus being ripped out of the arm of a parent. Still, kids in cages is reimpressible. Yeah, I can't talk tonight for some reason. We should create homes for the ones coming in. So, like I just showed y'all, like content that I've done before, if y'all remember, this was probably like sometime last year. There was information that came out talking about how more resources were being given to border custody to complete DNA test. The entire narrative about kids being pulled out of the arms. Just imagine this, right? Just imagine if you're a parent in Mexico and your child is kidnapped from you, stolen from you, and they go to a checkpoint at a border of a country. You have border security, border agents, officers, and nobody asks or tries to see, is this your biological child? Y'all just on the run like you on a Beyonce tour. You Bunny and Clyde with somebody's child. And the thought that people have, they think it's compassionate to not make sure that this child belongs to this parent. So there was information that came out, and I previously did a video about this where I talked about the DNA test, and I also talked about how 1/3 of the children, 1/3, 1 out of every 3 children that were coming into the border were coming with somebody that was not a biological parent or family member. Nothing is compassionate about saying, yeah, just come on with the child. We don't know you. We don't know the child. We don't know what type of relationship y'all have going on. We don't know what you're trying to do with this child. But I mean, whatever. Hey, compassion. We'll give you beds and put you up in a hotel. So that's why you have to constantly be aware of the type of narratives that the media creates, and then they package them in very easy phrases so people don't have to think. They don't want you to think. They just want you to parrot. They just want you to parrot their talking points. Kids in cages, snatch out of parents' arms, right? These are just very easily repeatable things that people don't even have to know any truth behind it. They don't have to be able to explain their reasoning or anything. You just use a hashtag. You use an easily packaged talking point. Throw a little empathy in there. Say something about like love and compassion, and people run with that. But in fact, it's very counterproductive. It's very counterproductive. And the media knows this. The politicians know this. They constantly pull on your emotional heartstrings to push forward their agenda. And the whole time, what's really going on behind the scenes is totally different. Gets even crazier. Even crazier. Because I need y'all to know what's happening down here. Gets even crazier. How many of y'all knew this? This is according to Snopes. Fact-checking Snopes. Did the Obama administration place immigrant children with human traffickers? A congressional report and criminal indictment resulted from a 2014 incident in which multiple immigrant children were handed off to a human trafficking ring. True. Some immigrant children were placed with human traffickers during the Obama administration. How many people knew that? This is not a like haphazardly, like a casual thing. They were placed with human traffickers. And then a crazy part that really kills me is that you will say true, and then somehow you still go on and try to attach this to the Trump administration. Why is that even necessary to this, especially when you even told us that it's true? On June 17, 2018, right-wing blogs published a flurry of stories reporting that the administration of former United States Barack Obama had handed immigrant children over to human traffickers. Who cares who reported it if it's true? Who cares? If it is true, but anyway. It's that they're saying, so the left-leaning media stayed strangely silent when the detention of migrant children went on for years before Trump took office. And now it look like they also kept quiet when Barack Obama's administration literally placed immigrant children in the hands of human traffickers just a few years ago. The United States government placed an unknown number. We don't even know how many children this could be, of Central American migrant children into the custody of human traffickers after neglecting to run the most basic checks on these so-called caregivers. Does it get any more obvious than this? How can I read this to y'all? This is upsetting. This is upsetting. And this is what happens when you have people that don't know history. You are doomed to repeat it. When you don't know what's actually going on, you just repeat talking points. Here is your media. Here is your fact checkers telling you. They're not even hiding it. In 2016, yes, we effed up. We put an unknown number. We don't even know. We ain't got time to do the data. Could be hundreds of Central American migrant children into the custody of human traffickers after neglecting to run the most basic checks on the so-called caregivers. But here you got Meg and her little compassion and American privilege. And she thinks it should just be a free-for-all. Just let everybody in. Who cares? the kid was on their arm. You kind of look like the dad? Don't all you people below that border look alike? Come on in. Clueless. Clueless. So now you have an administration that's most likely and possibly going to be doing the same thing. In July 2015, the U.S. Department of Justice indicted a ring of traffickers led by Araldo Castilla Serrano and accused them of smuggling children into the United States. They were also accused of lying to Health and Human Services Office of Refugee Resettlement by posing as relatives in order to gain custody of children in its care and use them for forced labor. The federal indictment filed in U.S. District Court in Ohio accuses Castilla and his conspirators of forcing children to live in squalid trailers and work 6 or 7 12-hour days a week, using threats and physical violence as coercion. How dare you, Meg? How dare you? But this is what happens when people get sucked up into a echo chamber, get sucked up into prepackaged talking points, get sucked up into CNN, MSNBC, Fox News, whoever, news personalities. News talk show hosts that throw all their feelings and opinions on the matter, that try to sell you on the compassion and empathy side of the matter, but don't give you the facts of the matter. And here are people trying to make Biden different, but in fact, it's worse. It's worse for children. It's worse for the families. It's worse for grieving mothers whose children are being smuggled and kidnapped. And even the freaking Mexican president says it's worse. So in essence, we are practically at this point rolling out the red carpet for human traffickers, rolling out the red carpet for people that are physically and sexually abusing children. And we're doing it under the banner of empathy and compassion. If that's not some freaking mind-blowing, like mind-numbing, like mind propaganda programming, I don't know what is. I don't know what is. But the unfortunate part about it is, well, part of the downsides of the most recent mass shootings is that you're going to have things like this swept under the rug. People are already checking out. People are already not caring as much. I mean, so it's a sad situation when people don't even know that straight evil is being cloaked behind their so-called empathy and compassion. Don't even know it. But anyway. Hey, the White TV. But let's keep moving. Let's keep moving forward. We'll see what happens with this. I am going to continue talking about this as details arrive. How many details will actually arrive, I don't know, because just imagine an administration coming out like, y'all can't even have media access. What is that telling us? Why not? Like, what do you not want us to know? So as things change, I will be sure to talk about this. I've talked about this from the protecting children aspect, protecting women aspect, and also the aspect of how it uh um decreases the value of the American worker, uh, uh, the focus on the American citizen, the American voter, and things like this as well. So those are just some things to think about, but just sad times. Sad times are probably will a lot of this will end up getting swept under the rug though. But all right, y'all, let's go on to talk about these mass shootings that recently happened. I posted on Twitter the other day, and I also posted on Instagram. Make sure y'all are following me on Instagram and Twitter. On Instagram, I'm Rhonda_Mary. On Twitter, I am RhondaMary. Y'all know my previous Twitter was deleted, blocked, banned, and I don't have my computer. It still has my old VPN. I think that's what it's called. So I use my blocked Twitter to show y'all stuff on the screen. But anyway, that's another story for another day. But I posted this the other day. I said, since the drug war is no longer popular, they'll now force feed you misleading anti-gun propaganda. How else can they keep their slave labor? And then let me read y'all the caption. I said, oh, y'all really thought they were going to defund the police, huh? Not the same people that said they could protect us from drugs, now saying they can protect us from guns. They can't even protect us from their own police. Plus, how else are they going to keep their slave labor? Especially when due to COVID/George Floyd, you've had more Black gun owners now than ever before. If you can't find criminals, I guess just make new ones. So that's what I posted. And before I get into talking about this, I do want to briefly also talk about the mass shootings. So I posted it on the 13th of this month. It's only been 10 days. And since the time I posted it, basically saying, all right, y'all, keep y'all eyes open. I feel the anti-gun propaganda coming. I just feel it in the air. I just know it's headed our way. And here we are, just 10 days later. And since then, we've had two highly publicized mass shootings. Now, why I say highly publicized is because if you know anything about the actual data and the actual numbers, when you look at the numbers of mass shootings compared to any other shooting, when you look at I believe this is according to the FBI data, they count mass shootings as it's either 3 or 4 people. Y'all let me know in the comments, but I think it's 3 or 4 at the same time who aren't related, right? So it could be a party, a nightclub, whatever type of situation. So in fact, based on the FBI data, mass shootings happen more regularly than reported. However, mass shootings are still a very small portion. and I can't remember the number off the top of my head, so I don't want to give y'all the number, but it's a very small number of all of um shootings. Okay. And so with that, I do want to say that anytime somebody is affected by gun violence, somebody is, impacted by violence unnecessarily, that is obviously tragic. We always, empathize with people losing loved ones and losing their family members. And so me, as somebody that talks about the 2A all the time, 2A advocate, a fairly new, not like super new, but fairly new gun owner, trying to persuade more people, particularly more people in my demographic, to become gun owners, learn more about self-protection and things like this. I do think this is something important to talk about. The unfortunate side of this is when it has to become political. I don't personally believe that these issues must become political. I don't believe these issues have to become political. However, they do. The politicians, the talking heads never miss a point to equate these things back to gun violence, right? But if you are at a protest and some, crazed person drives their car into a group of protesters, we don't call it car violence, right? So there's obviously a very direct agenda or a narrative that is pushed around these discussions. Now, I am somebody that has had people close to me, people that I have loved, people that I know on a personal level affected by gun violence, and I know how hurtful, sad, and tragic that can be, right? But we still have to, along with empathizing with people, we still have to be willing to give people the facts and the truth of the matter as well. So we're going to talk a little bit about the shootings. We're going to talk about gun control, the gun control stance, some of the way the politicians and the talking heads are pushing this, and how it's going to take us moving forward. So you had the shooting at the Young's Asian Massage in, I believe that was in Georgia. And you had the grocery shooting in Boulder, Colorado, just here recently. So if y'all don't know, there's recently been this uptick of stop the Asian hate, narrative, hashtags, rallies, and things like that. I find that particularly interesting because even after that particular mass shooting in Georgia, I saw a lot of people talking about, or people trying to switch the narrative to being about Black-owned Asian quote unquote hate crimes. Now, if you've been following me for a while, you already know how I feel about terms like hate crime and hate speech. First of all, I feel like this is another example of people using terms to garner some type of empathetic, compassionate response out of people, but that doesn't always translate to the legal aspect, okay? The prosecution aspect of the situation. You have to remember, when you create certain narratives First of all, that builds a psyche that translates into how we view these issues socially. And then also, oftentimes it also translates into the legislation that politicians try to push. And I don't give a crap how you feel about legislation. I don't give a crap how you feel about the actual legislation. The most important thing to remember is who is writing the legislation, who is enforcing it, how will it be enforced. And every single law is enforced at the end of a gun, up unto the threat of death. That is what that means. So any law that you ever support, any legislation that you ever support, you basically have to ask yourself, do I think that this is something worth being escalated to up to death? Because that can happen during that interaction with that officer. That's just what it is, right? So I do not support hate crime laws. I do not support hate crime speech, okay? If you actually look at how things are projected in the media versus the actual prosecution side in almost every instant, regardless of, we can span this across different types of legislation, whether we're talking about red flag laws, whether we're talking about hate crimes or anything else, right? Once you're looking at the actual data from the FBI database, and I am going by the information that they are presented to all of us, right? The media will get on the TV, your favorite Twitter personality will get on their phone and be like, these white supremacists don't need guns, or we have to stop white supremacists for using this type of language or saying these words, right? But then when you actually see who is being affected and how these laws are being implemented, it doesn't match the narrative that we are being told. It doesn't. And that's why people are able to, it's this whole Twitter, like, stop the Black on Asian hate now. It's very interesting how Black people went from being the biggest victim, it was like Black Lives Matter all 2020. And I was like, oh, we got to get some new hate crime laws in here to stop the Black on Asian hate. Now, one thing I find interesting is that it would seem as if, I haven't looked at the actual data as far as the numbers, but I'm more so talking about things that I've seen on Twitter and like the social media engagement of it. So even though we had hate crimes ramping up during the whole like China virus and the initial lockdowns and things like that, we did see, as reported, some ramping up of hate crimes. However, it seems as if, to me, I could be wrong, I don't know, it just seems as if now it's more so coming to a head, or more so way more being highlighted, and things like that. And then right after, you have this mass shooting in Georgia. Now, according to a lot of reports, initially people were trying to say this was a hate crime and things like this. But according to some reports, this guy has some like type of sexual addiction, maybe some crazed out like incel type behavior, possibly misogynistic. Maybe he was already frequenting these type of areas and he felt some type of way about it. I don't really know. But I just think it's interesting that all of a sudden people want to push this not only COVID-19 hate crime legislation, but also tie this into stopping gun violence. So before I go into talking about this, first of all, I also want to mention the history, a little bit of the history of like the Black and Asian like kind of like back and forth type thing. So there is I think some possibly historical reference to what has happened with you having hostility sometimes between Black and Asian people. A lot of times some people feel like, okay, well, Asian people come into our communities and don't really reciprocate what we reciprocate, right? So not only do you have a government that in some ways has absolutely, there's no denying this, has exacerbated, right, picking the winners and the losers as far as whether we're talking about, I mean, this kind of ties back into the immigration thing, right? Certain benefits that immigrants get and things like that. So you do have some, I don't know what's the word I'm looking for there. Maybe some hostility over issues and stuff like that. But one thing that I don't think makes sense about the whole hate crime thing is because people also have to realize that. So, okay, so let's just keep it real, right? Let's say if you are in your neighborhood or whatever the case may be, you are going to be more likely to have incidents with the people that you are amongst, okay? So if you are doing transactions, doing business with this person or anything else, and let's say, it's something goes wrong during this transaction. Do we think that people of different races, like if you are mad at somebody, you're feeling some type of way, this transaction didn't go well, whatever, y'all are bumping heads. People in an angry state, in a fighting state, are typically going to say and do whatever. They're going to revert to their lowest level self to get under this person's skin. So now all of a sudden, do we think that, oh, because this person said that in this moment, this absolutely hands down had to be a hate crime? Like, so I attacked you, fought you, whatever, because you were Asian or because you were Black, not because of the actual issue that we had at the moment. And then I just said whatever in the moment. So this is another thing that I feel like where the hate crime issue gets tricky. It's not uncommon if you are having a problem with a person to revert to saying things about their characteristics. That's not unheard of. And so now you have the Biden administration that is going to, Biden is on board, right? Biden is on board for this. Let me see. I think I have it pulled up. Legislation to combat COVID-related hate crimes. And even calling it COVID-related hate crimes, what does that even mean, right? But as you get into the actual seat, that's another like empathetic, like, oh, people are hating because it's COVID. But once you get into what the legislators are saying, it's going to be tied back into Asian specific language. So the bill also provides resources for communities to come together and fight intolerance and hate. This is no less than victims deserve. That's the senator out of Hawaii, Hirono. Lawmakers announced Thursday that they are reintroducing hate crime legislation in an effort to mitigate the ongoing pandemic racism Asian Americans have long been confronting. The legislation, spearheaded by Representative Grace Ming and Senator Mazi Hirono, would equip law enforcement with added support to address hate crimes related to the COVID-19 pandemic. In a statement provided to NBC Asian American, Hirono said that the act would address the surge in violence directed towards the Asian community. We've seen the horrifying consequences of racist language as AAPI communities across our country experience hate crimes and violence related to the pandemic. The bill also provides resources for communities to come together and fight intolerance and hate. This is no less than victims deserve. So my question is, if, like, after everything we saw in 2020, right? Black Lives Matter was booming. You had all these protests. You had all this and that going on. What other way could you get people to emotionally and empathetically get on board to support more resources going to the police than to create a new victim class? Think about that. It's no other way that you could federally see money being pumped into the police agencies, and people find it as popular or the thing to do without creating some type of narrative, some type of boogeyman, and things like that. I am a like, protecting yourself is a human right. It's human nature. I don't give a crap who you are. If you feel like it is up to the point where this person is going to inflict physical violence up to death on you, you have every single right to deserve to protect yourself. But like I talked about earlier, when it is so obvious that you have an administration that is trying to create or boost a new voter block, what better way for people to make people feel some way than saying, not only are we going to take your guns, but let us fund these policies to protect you. You don't need to hand that over to me. We'll take care of it. We'll take care of you. We're going to do all these studies to figure out why you're being hated, why you're being assaulted. We're going to do studies to figure out why this guy came into the shop and shot at people. But you don't need that. You don't need that gun to protect yourself. Look at all the legislation we're giving you to protect you. Black said, want to take our guns, but boost the powers of the police. And that's the exact point. People have forgotten that fast. This agenda, this current narrative is leading us down a totally opposite, totally 180 narrative than just last year. And people don't even notice because right now they're going into straight talking points. Oh, I'm compassionate. Oh, I'm empathetic talking mode. Why would I or anybody else that have seen police officers on camera lead people to their death with immunity? Immunity. We ain't even fixed that yet. And you honestly believe that these are the people that I think will be able to protect me with a so-called hate crime bill, with so-called surveys. They always talking about what they researching, what they surveying. What that is just another way to funnel money. It's BS every single time. Majority of the time, they say, majority of the time, oh, we're researching. That is an easy way to say we are about to give millions to the police agencies. That's literally all they're saying. That's what that translates into. And so now they've literally just shifted the energy. They've pulled the rug from under people, and people don't even, it's like right in front of us. It's no way this administration can be like, yeah, we just want to give the police more money because we just want to get the police more money because, that's what we are. We're literally status. We're known for our crime bills. We're known for locking people up. We're known for trying to give you extra years. Joe Biden got on the Congress floor and bragged about his crime bills. We can't tell y'all that after y'all already was a little suspicious about us. So we're going to use these tragic situations to exacerbate and inflame the issue. I've seen no overwhelming evidence of some type of protection, from the government. From seeing citizens die on camera to seeing people losing their homes and going hungry because of draconian lockdown measures. Nothing in the recent years makes me think, well, maybe they are serious about protecting me this time. I think I'll give them a try. I do think police officers should be the only one with guns. I do think police officers should be the only ones with AR-15s, even though AR-15s are actually way more easy for women and children to shoot during home intrusions to protect their own lives because they can protect themselves much quicker than the police can get there. But don't nobody care about that. Of course, only the police should have those firearms. I'm supposed to believe that administrations that can't stop human trafficking, you can't stop drugs. I mean, years and years and years of a drug war. It has not stopped the transportation nor the sale of drugs. There's nothing that has been said or done to give me faith in these issues. And how dare you even suggest such things off the heels of 2020 as if we forget so quickly. And this is why I support personal self-protection, because nobody, I don't care who you are, nobody is going to protect you like you'll be willing to protect yourself. Nobody can get quicker to you than you are to yourself. It's not lost on me that not only do some of the heat need to be taken off these other issues, but we already have more gun legislation sitting in Congress, more restrictive gun legislation than ever before. And so when things aren't popular, there is a programming that happens. There is a narrative that happens to allow people to make room for such things by using words like compassion. Nothing is compassionate about leaving my fate in only the hands of the government. That is not compassionate. Forcing me. Nothing is compassionate about forcing citizens to leave their protection solely in the hands of the government. That is not compassionate. So, the discussions up until the implementation of gun control and even of hate crimes are literally just an extension of crime bills. That's what it is. I saw somebody tweet this today. I gotta talk about this. This dude said, if every young black male over the age of 21 registered for a concealed weapon permit today, there would be new gun control laws by the end of the week. I responded, Black people were the biggest demographic of new gun owners in 2020. Your suggestion is not only wrong, but it's also dumb. It's wrong because factually it's inaccurate and overstated. And it's dumb because it's backhanded suggestion of using Black people for your little guinea pig experiment instead of actual concern for our livelihood is an insult. Imagine trying to get back at the man by virtually turning millions of new Black law-abiding gun owners into criminals overnight. You want to use Black people, man, y'all go and get y'all guns, to make a point that's really not, when y'all be saying that, y'all, whoever you are, if you're watching this and you're the person that's ever used that terminology, that's not the own that y'all think it is. Inferring using a demographic of people that has often found it hard to trust the government, but using this demographic as some kind of gotcha moment to then have them be turned around and being thrown into situations with law enforcement, because that's what's going to happen. Once gun control is implemented, you're going to have tons of new gun owners that are virtually, I went because I'm a unicorn spirit, dust and AR-15s type of girl. Cheap plug, get your hoodie below and the link below. Just having this in my home, never committed any acts of aggression on anyone, physical aggression, ever, never harmed anyone, never used my firearm in relation to anyone, as most firearm owners will never do. It is a means of protection if and when that event happens. But by this guy's logic, I would now be a criminal. And now the same people that have, and it's crazy because this be the same abolish the prisons people. Like, a lot of y'all are just status wrapped up in a lot of hashtags and cute words. You don't even realize the full spectrum or the full possibilities of what you're saying. So to throw more people into unnecessary unnecessary interactions with police officers, with the government. Nancy Pelosi, AOC, is not freaking showing up to take guns from you. It's going to be the same officers that this administration or the next administration or whoever is going to funnel more money into that you were just protesting about last year. If some frat boy hops into his car drunk and unfortunately somebody loses their life, I shouldn't be held accountable because I had a margarita this weekend. And me, as a responsible adult, took a Uber, took a Lyft, had a friend drive, or whatever the case may be. We have to start putting blame where it is. I do think that there is a way to have these conversations, but it has to be done honestly, both honestly and objectively. And also, people have to know the truth of the statistics. You have more people defending their life, and I'm gonna do content on this. I'm gonna do an actual breakdown of this with the numbers and the statistics, because I feel like a lot of people don't know the truth. We're just so used to running with talking points, to running with narratives, and all that type of thing, that we don't know that tons of more people are defending their lives every day than people that are being shot or killed in mass shootings, right? We don't know that a lot of people that perpetuate gun violence are oftentimes recidivists. These people are usually just into criminality, right? And so there may be some type of loophole or something we need to talk about as recidivism, or keys to trying to mitigate some of these factors. But that's a huge, this idea that like, there are millions of gun owners. There are millions of responsible gun owners. And evil people, malicious people, nefarious people, they don't have any interest in following the laws. Somebody that is seeking, that has a bloodlust, they don't care. And then you have good people that I don't care if I owned a tank. I don't care if I owned a machine gun. I don't care what I had. There's tons of people out there. There are people that are heinous people. There are people that commit crimes. And then there are people that don't, regardless of the tool that is used to do so. I see recently now in UK, they're literally talking about, or maybe already did, like banning pepper spray. This should be more proof to people. A government having the audacity to tell you we're gonna ban, I think they went from guns like been banned or something like that to banning knives to now banning pepper spray. If that is not a clear indication to people that it's about, governments don't want you to have the ability to protect yourself. This is a protection racket. We're paying people that we practically don't even know, but they hold us. I mean, like, I'm about to get into the whole taxation and theft thing. No contract have I signed telling these people that I want to give them whatever percentage of my money to pretend like they're protecting us, even though the courts decided that they are under no obligation to protect us. It's written on paper. But it's a literal protection racket, because a lot of these politicians know if it wasn't for the we're gonna save you from the bad boogeyman vibes, they wouldn't have anything to run on. It's the always, oh, trust us. We'll protect you from the bad guy. You can't even get your own agents in line. You can't even control the people that work for you. But you're telling me you're going to be able to control a person that has a bloodlust? And as somebody, like I've said, that's had people near me affected by gun violence. In one of those situations, I know for a fact simple uh knowledge and gun safety could have saved someone's life. And so I don't ever want people to think like, oh, like, I just don't care or anything like that. Like, no, I've been affected. But me learning more, and I'm like, dang, like, you know, removing the stigma, the mystique, painting this thing as some cool thing instead of a tool to protect and defend human life. Making sure that teaching gun safety is like mandatory, like teaching ABCs almost. Just common could change so many outcomes. And, I hate to compare, but for some people that may not consider these type of things, right? People will ask, well, how does you being armed or more people being armed help these type of situations? Well, there's a stark contrast to, for example, the guy in the grocery compared to, do y'all remember the guy that went in the church and was, I can't even remember if he was able to shoot anyone, or maybe he may have, I think he shot like one person in a church, and that security team that had been trained was able to respond immediately because you know, are your own first responder. You're there as a situation is happening. And so if someone had not been there, that it could have been a lot more life taken in that situation. And so there you have two totally different situations, and every situation is not going to be the same. There are obviously different variables and things like that, but that is just an example of the possibility of someone there being able to uh help mitigate some of the risk. And when I was watching a video from the grocery store, I don't know if y'all saw it, but it just seemed really odd to me. Like, that video was really odd. Like, how people were just, it was odd. It was very odd. How people were laying out in the floor, on the ground. Like, you didn't hear anybody screaming. I don't recall seeing anybody running. Even the guy that was recording the video just seemed very calm. The people, I think it was two guys, if I remember correctly, standing at the door, and they were just kind of chilling. And so you heard shots again in the background. It's a very, very odd video. And it's somebody that has practiced and been in active shooter drills, like training drills. Even in like the drills, it's not real, but the level of, somewhat like chaos, or even the level of like kind of like, I don't want to say franticness. I don't know what the word I'm looking for, but it's just a lot. It's just a lot. I don't think I would be standing at the door chilling while an active shooter is in the building behind me. I don't know how many of y'all saw that video. AJ X Bishop said it was odd, but I think everyone has or was in shock. But you think at least one person would be running. Shock, like what I saw is not, I wouldn't use shock to describe what I saw in that video. It literally looked like they had stepped out. The two guys that were behind him, I think one worked at the grocery store, and then maybe the other one did too, but I know one of them had on like the little clerk or like the cashier garb, I believe, if I remember correctly. It looked like they had just stepped out to take a smoke break. Like, so, it could possibly be shock. Everybody reacts differently, I guess, but that just was some odd, like, and then a parking lot was full of cars, but you barely saw like people walking around. I don't know. But anyway, we'll see. We'll see as more information comes out. And then here you have This is NBC News. What a hurting community says it needs from its Asian American vice president. In this moment, the lived experiences of our leaders matter. Jenny Kim, Vice President of Policy and Programs for Asian Americans, advancing justice. After 6 Asian women were killed at 3 Atlanta area spas on Tuesday, the phrase "Stop Asian Hate" trended on social media for 2 days, and a national spotlight was cast on a year of violence against Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders as the community grieves, and it says it is gripped by fear. Civil rights leaders say people are looking to the vice president, the most prominent Asian American in politics. I just think that's super interesting. Like I said, this kind of ties back into how I said a big shift from the narrative of going into 2020 with Black Lives Matter being the forefront of the social justice movement to now Stop Asian Hate being the forefront of the social justice movement, how the narrative has been completely flipped. Even looking at the way Kamala Harris is being presented, she went from being the first Black woman president during the election for the votes. But now when you can help people, now when tangibles are involved, now when policy is involved, she's back to being an Asian American. This is another reason why when I talked about Meghan Markle a couple of weeks ago, I told people it's actually an insult to try to paint Black women, particularly phenotypically Black women, such as myself, to align us with people that are racially ambiguous, are multi-ethnic, such as people like Meghan Markle and Kamala Harris. I don't have the ability to pick and choose, pick and choose my ethnicity, my race. I don't have the ability to do that, right? That's not my experience. And you have people like the Meghan Markles and the Kamala Harris that are able to do so. That's not their fault. You know what I mean? That's not their fault if you have a Asian parent and a Black parent, or a Black parent and a white parent, or whatever the case may be. That's not the fault of the person. You know what I mean? But the constant narrative that the media tries to create to emotionally connect us to people, and trying to act as if they completely 100% align with you just simply based off racial identification is wrong, and it's a miss. It's a miss of the mark, and it's just not true. And you have people that are able to use this to their benefit, like you can now see that Kamala is able to do with the media. It's like, depending on what story is happening, what's going on, I can use being Asian to my benefit sometimes, and then the other half of the time I can use being Black to my benefit. I don't have that opportunity. And so Martin said convenient ethnicity. And that's just what it is. And that's what was one of my biggest reasons for trying to a big reason why the media does that is because at the time they're trying to make an appeal to whatever group or demographic that is at the time. And so they're going to use the most and try to get the best out of it. And to some levels, it is what it is. But me as a viewer, as a citizen, I just call it out as BS when I see for what it is, and this swaying thing of being used to the benefit of what of the agenda you're trying to seek at the time. Also, another thing that it's important to recognize is that if we believe to see propaganda in any aspect, you also have to be willing to see when your group, your demographic is also being used for propaganda. Like, you can't be blind to that. Don't ever think for 1 second that the media only be hyping up one group of people, or all of a sudden, oh, well, now the media is using propaganda. No. I've seen instances where they've done the same thing with Black people. I've seen the same instances where they've done the same thing with women. I've seen instances, and I've called out instances of them doing that with LGBT people. Um, and that's why sometimes it's also important, especially if you belong to that demographic, to speak out about the BS, because it's the best actually coming from you. Because if not, they will absolutely 100% try to paint the narrative as, oh, this represents you. No, they don't represent me. Even like my reference earlier with the whole gun ownership thing, I don't have to accept certain narratives or act like that's a part of my person, or anything that deals with me, because I don't have to be responsible for this person or the reflection of this person. I don't subscribe to that. I don't consent. I do not consent to that. I'm a peaceful, nonviolent person. I do not aggress on anybody that has not aggressed upon me. So I do not consent to any of those narratives that come with gun ownership. I do not. And so people have to constantly be aware, be willing to call out the propaganda, and make those distinctions clear. So yes, now the uh, government is absolutely, and loss of life is unnecessarily is never a good thing ever. But it's also unfortunate when that loss of life will be used to push agendas that can possibly, in fact, put you at more danger, more risk, put more people behind bars, create more interactions uh, with the police and things like that. So, but we'll see what happens. Like I said, you definitely have legislation being ramped up right now, and this is going to be the extra motivation and the extra push to just go ahead and make it, to just try to make it happen. A lot of times, like I said, they'll cloak their evilness or their, nefarious agendas behind this. Oh, well, we're trying to be compassionate, we're trying to be empathetic, we're trying to help people. And it doesn't really help me, as far as I see it, when I have not seen other instances that make me really be like, oh dang, maybe they are trying to like help me. Like, I could see that. No, I can't see that. Like, it's nothing I've been shown. All of the historical references, um, you know, And even knowing gun control started off, the very basis of it literally started as a result of racism, and even now has very still has some of that, you know, undertones. Um, but yeah, I just haven't seen anything that makes me feel otherwise and feel like these people, I think they really care about me. I think they might be trying to look out for me. So, but we'll see. We'll see what happens. Um, you know, I want the more like I shouldn't say unusual suspects in this context, but the more like people who wouldn't typically be seen as gun owners to start possibly being more vocal, because it happens. We're out here. I remember even when I went to the bank to I had to get my form notarized to get my concealed carry permit, and the guy was like, you I was like, you know. um So once we normalize these things, make it look like it's not just one group of people that want to protect themselves, because that's certainly not the case. We normalize these conversations and come up with real-time solutions to help mitigate. Because if you don't know, a high percentage, very, very high, I think, if I'm not mistaken, it might even be over 50%. Don't quote me on the number. I'm going to do a breakdown of this later. But a high number of that is actually gun statistics deals with like suicide rates and stuff like that. There are agencies that I'm going to talk about, people that talk about these things, you know, just a lot of stuff. I'm not going to get into that tonight. But all right, y'all. So we will keep an eye on this thing, on these things. We will see what happens with the COVID-19 crime bill, hate crime bill, whatever they're calling it. We'll keep an eye on that. We'll see how these stories continue to go. If they let us know what's happening with these kids in facilities. And we'll also see what happens with the gun legislation as it tries to work its way up through Congress. But this is going to be a very interesting next 4 years. I feel like you're going to have a lot of things coming to head now, and we're really going to see where we fall on this whole Constitution thing and what they was really talking about as relates to speech, because they've been wrapping up on this censorship as it relates to the media, freedom of the press. You got the Joe Biden administration saying, nah, y'all can't take no pictures here. Y'all can't see what's going on in here. And as it relates to gun rights. So there'll be some things where you just have to kind of stay with it and find out when we get there. But anyway, thank y'all for rocking with me every Tuesday. Thank y'all so much for joining me. Thank you. A special thank you to my patrons and my VIP patrons, Ray Ray and Daniel. If you would like to purchase merch, that is at the link below in my description box. And all right, y'all, we'll be talking soon. Bye.